It's really close to your estimated last frost, but you wanted to grow cool season crops. What do you do? This is such a great question because so many of us start thinking about gardening when spring comes, and the garden centers are no help because a lot of times big box stores have crops well outside of their growing season. Now, understanding the cool season versus hot season crop ideas is something that we talked about in Gardening 101 class. But to answer this question specifically, we're going to focus in on the brassicas because brassicas are notorious for bolting, which is basically when they start going to flower. This is often signaled by it getting too hot for them. So here are a few tips on how you can grow these cool season crops if you are worried that you are outside of your starting indoors window or direct sowing window. So tip number 1 is to consider transplanting instead of starting indoors. I like to follow what's going on at my local nurseries because a lot of times they will purchase based on your location and the crops will be things that will actually grow at that time. So just look at buying versus trying to start the seeds indoors. The second thing you can do, particularly for brassicas, is to consider growing in the fall. So aside from collards and kale, I do all of my brassicas only in the fall season because they do much better and I don't take up any garden space for these plants that bolt and I don't actually get to harvest. Another thing you can do to enjoy those cool season crops even while it is getting warmer is to consider shade cloth, planting in the shade, or companion planting with crops that are going to get really tall and shade those cool season crops when it starts getting really warm. And an example of this for me is I always plant my carrots in the same spaces that I'm going to be planting peppers. They're really great companions and those pepper plants will act as a really good shade canopy so that I do not have to worry about my carrots getting stunted because of the heat. The last tip is to choose the right varieties. You want to choose crop varieties that have a very short window of maturity so they get to that mature crop pretty quickly. And you also want to choose crops that are heat resistant or heat tolerant. These will generally be better grown in southern regions so that you're not so worried about that bolting happening very quickly. And let me know if you have any more questions about planting cool season crops now or anything in general about gardening.